Very odd season in 2014 in Blacksburg. It included 6 losses, 3-5 record in the ACC, a win at the eventual national champion in Columbus, and a bowl win to conclude the season and at least finish with a winning record at 7-6. We bring in Mike McDaniel of ACC Insider to break down the Virginia quarterback situation. And Mike, of course, we saw Michael Brewer take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. A fierce pass rush. Joey Bosa in particular hung in there, delivered the football, and they emerged with a big victory. But then they ran into some issues in the ACC immediately. I think the next week they ran into East Carolina in particular. Brewer got knocked around, got picked off 15 times, and he doesn't necessarily have the job going into August. So can you kind of set things up for us?
Yeah, so it's a situation there in Blacksburg. Michael Brewer, the incumbent starter, almost 2,700 yards passing last year and a 59% completion percentage. But as you alluded to, 15 interceptions were obviously troublesome, especially after that Ohio State game. It just seemed like he was turning the ball over at an unbelievable clip. Had those 15 interceptions, but he did throw 18 touchdown passes to some emerging targets there with Isaiah Ford, who really came on as a freshman last year, as well as Bucky Hodges, who, according to Phil Steele, is a third-team preseason All-American. So he's got some playmakers there on the outside, and he's got the full support now of offensive coordinator Scott Loeffler. Said that, Brewer coming into camp this spring, he's thrown the ball a lot better. He's overcome a back issue that had kind of lingered with him since his transfer from Texas Tech going into last season. And he's got a situation there at quarterback where he is just a pocket passer, but Tech likes to run the ball too. So Brenden Motley, he's a redshirt junior. He was brought in spots last year as a Wildcat quarterback. He's got a little bit experience playing in games. He's a run-first guy for sure. He was injured in the Miami game. He came in a Wildcat spot, took over in the shotgun, and ended up running it up the middle and getting hit pretty hard, knocked out of the game with a concussion in that blowout loss to Miami. And coming into his spring, he showed a little bit of competition with Brewer, but ultimately it looks like Brewer is going to be the starter heading into the fall, and there are chances that Motley will get in as a running threat, especially in the red zone.
Based on what I saw out of Brewer, Mike, I couldn't really question his toughness because it seemed like he really came off the deck a number of times. You mentioned the poor offensive line, getting pressure consistently throughout the entire season. He got roughed up quite a bit. He's not a real big guy at 6 feet, maybe 200 pounds, something in that range. And maybe the lack of mobility, the offensive line issues, and also not being the biggest guy in the world is not the best combination for Brewer. But again, he's the incumbent at this point. So it should be interesting to see what we hear out of camp in August. Going down the line for Virginia Tech fans, maybe a reason for a little bit more optimism with a 4-star recruit in Dwayne Lawson coming into the fold.
Yeah, Dwayne Lawson, big-time player out of Hillsborough High School in Tampa, Florida. As a 4-star recruit, he's the highest-rated quarterback since Tyrod Taylor, who obviously left Virginia Tech fans with many great memories from his 4 years in Blacksburg. What's interesting about Dwayne Lawson is his former high school offensive coordinator is now the offensive quality control coach at Virginia Tech, which makes you think the writing might be on the wall for Lawson to potentially take over, not this year, but definitely the following year. Brenden Motley will be a redshirt senior at that point, but you have to think that's Lawson's job to lose going into 2017. One interesting thing to note, Andrew Ford, he was former Gatorade Player of the Year in Pennsylvania and was a third-string quarterback last year. He would have been a redshirt sophomore heading into this season. He ended up transferring out of the program this year in the spring because he just kind of saw the writing on the wall with Lawson, I think, and he's heading out to a program. He's, again, more of a pocket passer similar to Brewer. And I think with the mobility that Dwayne Lawson displays, as well as his coach coming on the Virginia Tech staff, I think those two aspects of Lawson's game really tailor towards him taking over the job in 2 years.
So, Mike, we don't know a whole lot about Motley, at least in regards to proving himself on the field. Brewer was middle-of-the-road, marginal quarterback last year. The offensive lines had issues. The running game has been, based on what I've seen, non-existent for a few years at Blacksburg. how is this team going to score some points this year?
Well, I think, like you said, they're going to have to run the ball a lot better. You know, in the times that they've been successful, at least over the past 5 or 10 years, you look at some of the great running backs they've had in Lee Suggs. You look at Ryan Williams. You look at David Wilson. I mean, Tech, in their heyday, when they were playing great football, those consecutive 10-win seasons they were putting up, and all those big-time bowl appearances, not just regular bowls, but all the big-time bowls that they were getting themselves into, they were running the ball terrifically. And since David Wilson left Blacksburg, Tech really has struggled to get it going on the ground. Offensive line struggles obviously play a lot into that, but there's reason for optimism in Blacksburg heading into this season. J.C. Coleman, he's going to be a senior this year. He ran for over 500 yards in the last 4 games and scored a lot of touchdowns on the ground for Tech last year. Played great in the bowl game, was the Military Bowl MVP. And you just have to think that with his senior year coming upon him, as well as the health of Trey Edmonds, getting him back healthy. He was a starter from 2 years ago, and he's finally going to be healed from a collarbone injury he suffered, as well as a foot injury from 2 years ago. You have to believe the Tech's running game will be back on the right track, at least aiding Michael Brewer in throwing the football this season.
All right, after a few downers in Blacksburg, we'll see if Virginia Tech's able to get back to its winning ways of double-digit wins and contending for ACC championship game berths. Mike McDaniel joining us from ACC Insider. Mike, as always, of course, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.